Sarjakuva-TV. All right.
Read a whole chapter of comics without having to click next page. So that's perfect. And that's why it takes an extremely, just like, very good reading experience, because you don't have to be clicking or like finding, where is the next button? Let me zoom in so I can find it. So yeah, and it has now been, I think, already, or who don't read just webcomics or webtoons yet. So they needed those Garfield fans and those X-Men fans and Avengers fans, and they wanted them. So they started hiring artists who are Western. And this is how they did it. They actually have a contest going on right now. The contest actually has a couple of Finnish comics in the contest, so go and read them. I think one of them was called Summertime, and one of them was called Heartblood. But anyways, they have these contests every now and then. And I have now been working for them, this is my 4th year. And back then, they noticed that they didn't have enough sci-fi webcomics. So they held a competition specifically for sci-fi webcomics, because that was what they were doing. They were holding competitions for the things that they were needing, because competition is a wonderful way to just like reel in people. You're just being like, hey, best story wins $80,000, so take part. When I was taking part in the competition, it wasn't 80,000, it was only 30,000. So. And I didn't even win it, so you know, I didn't get any $30,000. So, well, that's anyway. But yeah, they had a sci-fi webcomic contest, and what I did was this comic over here. This comic is Immortal Nerd. It is a comic that I made in such a hurry. You can't, like, you're looking at these pictures right now and you saw my newer comic and you're like, is this the same person drawing this? Because I have been working for a US audience for quite some time now. I came home and a lot of my friends were like, hey, we're working on this webtoon contest, we're all taking part in this. And I'm like, the contest has started a week ago, and I am already super late, and that means that I need to like draw 2 chapters of comics in 1 week. And I was like, sounds reasonable. So that's what I did. I just went through, like, I was like, all right, sci-fi, have I ever done sci-fi? No, well, I can make this work. And I found like one comic idea that I had for an immortal vampire, and I was just like, well, I'll just make the person immortal because of sci-fi technology, I don't know. And then I submitted it for the competition, and I got into the top 16. And the system was like, the top 4 will all get a job at Webtoons, and the first person, the person who wins, will get the grand prize of $30,000. I got into top 16, and that was it. I couldn't get any further. I mean, like, the judges liked my comic, but when it came to voting for my comic, nobody really wanted to vote for it. So that was the end of my journey. But so when the competition ended for me and others kept on going with the competition, I was just like, well, that's fine. I'm not gonna continue working on this comic for free. I had a lot of comics related jobs. So I just ended up posting on the Webtoon that, thank you for reading my comic. I will post you, like, I will just like keep posting 2 more episodes. And after that, I'm gonna stop doing this comic because I don't have time for this. But I happen to have 2 episodes ready. I made them in case I get to be in the competition longer. So I posted one of them, and that was when I actually got an email from Webtoons 2 weeks later. Here's some more pictures from the comic. Saying that, would you like to actually work for us? Because we don't want you to stop making this comic. So in the end, it turned out really well that I decided not to continue the comic for free, because I am pretty sure they would have never emailed me if I would have just kept going with the comic. When I said, like, I'm gonna hold this comic hostage and you're not getting it until you pay, they were like, will pay. So that's what happened. And yeah, when I got the email, I was so scared of telling anyone about it because I was just like, it was too good to be true. It was like a comic that publishes once a week, so that means I get paid for 4 chapters a month, and that actually equals a reasonable salary that you can live with. What the hell? That's weird. So that's why it was like too good to be true, and that's why I was so scared of telling anyone about it. When the comic started, I hadn't even really like tweeted about it because I was just so scared that they will just like, they will in the end, right before they publish it, they will be like, psych, we were messing with you, no comics, this was all just a ruse and we're just fooling around with you. But no, that didn't happen. And I got the job and I started working for this comic. And 2 years later and 106 episodes later, the comic finally ended. It was a beautiful chapter. There was a marriage, wedding in the last chapter. And the deal with this comic was that the people, like my editors and they were taking a lot of the way how we were working was very similar to even the manga industry. Like you had to listen to like the feedback from the audience and react to that instead of just making what you personally really want to make. You had to like keep on just like trying to make it more appealing to the audience. And in the end, that just made it very difficult for me to work because I am very used to just working for myself. So that was very weird. And in the end, because it didn't fit me at all, it made my comic very all over the place. Like, I knew that, all right, now my chapters haven't been doing so good, so I need to change something to make them better. And that's what happens, you know, I basically had the same situation as Bleach. Like, shove in some new characters so people will like it. Oh, I don't know what to do with these new characters. Oh, actually the plot is a mess now. Oops. You know, so that's basically what happened. But gladly after that, Webtoons wanted to change their system because they noticed that it is not working. Just like the Western audience wants more like full stories, more like movie type of stories, you know, story that starts somewhere and ends somewhere, and you know, it can still be super long, but it needs to start and end somewhere. Basically, how I stopped doing Immortal Nerd was that I was seeing my amount of readers just like going down all the time. I was just like seeing everything falling apart in front of me, not really, but like I was just seeing like decline in the amount of readers. And I actually myself contacted Webtoons and said, I am not confident, I am not, I don't like my comic anymore. I don't want to make this comic, but I would like to pitch you a new comic, because you know that I have been very consistent. I have not had like just like hiatus every now and then because I was on a vacation and forgot to draw or something like that. Like that had never happened with me. And like I was a reliable worker. So they were like, all right, well, your comic hasn't been the most popular one, but we are willing to just like believe in you for one more time. Because I was working consistently and I was reliable. So, you know, this comic, I mean, this comic is good, this comic is fine, but it is not the best comic that I could have made, and yet it was enough if you are reliable. Like, this is a life lesson for everyone who wants to work on comics. You don't have to make perfect comics, you just have to be very, very reliable and just be on time with everything. I worked for this comic for 2 years and I was never late, so yeah. But anyways, what I did was I sent them an email and asked, can I stop doing this? And ideas that I wanted to pitch, and then I realized one of them was super hard to make. So I decided to pitch this one that was easier to make, and it was shorter. And at this point, I was actually assigned an editor who used to work for Dark Horse. Dark Horse is the publisher of Hellboy and a lot of different comics, but Hellboy is their biggest comic, I think. And I got editor named Becca Caden, and now we were actually not working like the manga industry anymore. We were working like I would be working for a US publisher. Like I have an editor, we write the whole story first, or like I wrote the whole story, she read the whole story and said it's crap, and I rewrote the whole story. That's basically how it went. And that's how it started, and that's how we started working on the thing. And she was very particular about a lot of things first. Like I was getting so much feedback on a lot of things that I was just like, every time I would open her email, I would be like, oh my god, no, don't do this to me. And I had to go away from my computer for at least 2 hours to collect myself. The pieces of my confidence were shattered on the floor. I had to collect them back and go back on the computer and be like, I can change my comic. It was horrifying. But anyways, that's what happened. And how I pitched my comic, that's an interesting deal. Because normally when you pitch a comic, when I asked them, can I pitch you a new comic? And they were like, yeah, well, send us like a rough script or something and a couple of pictures of the characters. No, I sent the full first chapter because I am a perfectionist like that. I want to show people that I'm willing to work on things and make them really good and be on time. So that's why when I pitched my comic, instead of just sending like a text that says, oh, there's these gays and they fall in love in the countryside, and pictures of these guys, instead I sent the first chapter so that they can see for real like how different I want the comics to be from the first one, because that was my problem. I was scared that they will assume that I'm going to make the same thing over and over again. I'm gonna make exactly the same kind of comic as the previous one, because I really wanted to just do something different. And then afterwards we start working on thumbnails, and then I send in the thumbnails, and then I start working on the comic and so on. I think it was like 6 times, and nowadays it's just like I send in thumbnails and she basically only checks the spelling. I have learned her style of doing things, she has learned my style of doing things. We both see it's working really well, so you know, for that reason nowadays it's just like thumbnails and spell checks, and that's it. That was actually one of the things that changed between Immortal Nerd and the Life Outside the Circle, because with Immortal Nerd we were discussing more about how to make it more appealing. Nowadays that's not a discussion anymore. We are mostly discussing how am I going to make my intentions in the comic extremely clear. Like if I want to make a part of the story very sad, does it read as sad? And one of the things that she normally, like especially in the beginning, one of the things she always told me to edit was just to like make it more loose, don't make it so tight, because for Webtoon comics where you scroll it goes past so fast, you know, you're just scrolling, so you have to have enough space between the panels. Like, and I was so used to making book format comics so that they were really tight. Leave more space, let it breathe, like don't make it so tight. So that was one of the things. So pacing mostly nowadays. Like for Immortal Nerd, I was supposed to do 35 panels per episode, and nowadays it's 20 plus. I'm almost always, it's around 28 for me right now, because I just can't fit the whole thing in 20. But like my limitation is 20 right now instead of 35. But you can just like, if you start working for them, you can discuss it by yourself. But they do like long episodes, but with my style of telling things, it's very like packed. There's a lot of information, like the plot is going forward extremely fast. So that's the reason why I don't have to, like some of the people, I know this one person, Emma Krugel, who makes the Lumine webcomic for them. She needs to make at least 40 panels every time because her style of telling stories is so much slower. So she needs to make longer episodes so that there's still a lot of stuff happening. But because my style of telling things is very kind of fast-paced in a way, so that's why I need less. Drawn with ink, with Japanese Nikko school nibs, and the grayscale is ink wash. And then I just scan it, and my scanner is shit, and I just ordered a new one yesterday. And I just like the episode itself is built on Photoshop. I don't draw them in page format, so it's super difficult to say how many pages is it. I know that it's 28 panels, but how many pages is it? But when I draw, I end up with about 23 scans per episode. So that's like 23 A4 size papers that I have filled with drawings. So that's the length of my episodes. And you might think that that is a lot because like that takes a lot of time to finish, but I still do have time to do other things. And I will just like very shortly show you the other things that I do. Here is my publisher, Cowhouse Press, who has published this short gay stories book, which is just short gay stories. It's like 1 or 2 page short comics about queer issues and stuff. It's very humorous. And this one has won the Prism Award in USA. And you can get this from my Artist Alley table if you want afterwards. And I'm also working on this comic, Silly Ghost, with Arvi Tammi, who is a Finnish comics artist. This is like a strip comic that is mostly published on social media. You can find it from, it's Silly Ghost comic everywhere, it's like everywhere. Apart from that, I have also just finished making a comic called All the Queer Identities, which was supposed to come from the print for this event, but it didn't. But if you really, really want that one, you can come by my table and do a pre-order for it, so I will just like ship it to you. These are the comics that I do, and you can read more about me on my Wikipedia, except that you can't, because that shit is super, super old. So like this is my shout out, like please someone go to my Wikipedia and edit that. That was the point of that.